Shalom Aleichem for Rosh Chodesh Shvat. That's today. The Mishnah Yomi is holding in chapter 4 of Ketubot, Mishnah Beit, the second Mishnah. Ha'me'aris et bitau. A father who marries off his young daughter. In this case, the daughter is under bat mitzvah or is a naarah within the first 6 months of bat mitzvah, so she's still financially dependent on the father. As we explained in Yevamot, there's actually a Mishnah in Kedushin. The Gemara in Kedushin explains a father should not ideally marry off his daughter to a man when she's this young. He should wait till she grows up and she knows who she wants to marry. But sometimes there were difficult situations for Klal Yisrael, for the Jewish people, such as crusades or non-Jews who used to abduct young Jewish girls who are unmarried, chas v'shalom, lo aleinu. And so sometimes for the protection of young women, the fathers would marry off their daughters at a quite young age for their own benefit. So in this case, the father got the erusin, that's kiddushin, the first stage of a marriage, v'gersha. The Mishnah says, but then she was divorced from this first stage of marriage. They never went to chuppah, so she wasn't living with the husband. And then Ersa, the father married off his daughter again with erusin, again first stage of marriage, v'nit armala, and she became a widow from that second marriage. And all this takes place while she's still a ketana or a naarah, still very young. Ketuvah shelo, her ketuvah payments, the money payment for the end of this marriage, goes to the father. As we discussed in yesterday's Mishnayot, the Torah sets up a system where the man, the husband, the father of the household, is entitled to what the wife and children find and produce, but he's financially on the hook to feed and care for his entire family. So since this young girl is still financially dependent on the father after these two marriages did not work out, then the financial benefits from those two marriages goes to the father, and of course he's going to take care of his daughter again. Now the Mishnah contrasts this with the second variation, Hesia Begersha. Hesia means nisuin, means chuppah, means the second stage of marriage, full marriage. So he married off his young daughter, they had the party, they had the Suda, everyone was dancing, it was great. V'gersha, then it wasn't so great because they got divorced, and then Hesia married her off a second time, fully married, v'nit armala, and she became widowed. Ketuvato shela, her ketuvah payments from these marriages goes to this young woman, because once she has nisuin, she's fully married, she's now out of the father's domain. He's no longer the responsible party. Really, the husband becomes the responsible party, but then when the marriage ends, she is financially responsible for herself, even if she's still quite young. Rabbi Yehuda throws a wrench in the works here. He says, Arishona shalav. The first ketuvah payment would go to the father, but then the second one would go to the girl herself. Amrlo, the other sages said to Rabbi Yehuda, Misha Hesia, once there's a nisuin, and she's fully married, Ein le'avia reshut ba. The father has no rights to her financial issues. So once she's out of the house the first time, she has full financial control over what happens next. Go on to Mishnah Gimel. Hagioret, a woman who converts to Judaism, Shinit Gaira Bito Ima, and she had a daughter who converted along with her. So it was a mother-daughter that came into Yiddishkeit. Vizinta, and the daughter got married and committed znut, adultery. Harezo bechenek, her death penalty is a chenek, a strangulation, even though there's a case of a naarah me'orasa. A naarah, again, is a young woman who is me'orasa, who has erusin, the first stage of marriage. If such a young woman commits adultery, the punishment is skila. It's actually a harsher punishment. But a young woman who converted doesn't get that punishment. And actually our sages are now, because the Torah there says, Biarta hara mi-Yisrael, that you will punish her like this to remove the evil from Israel. If you want to look at the psukim, the verses, it's in Kitetze, Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 22. So since this particularly young woman, who God forbid did znut, didn't start mi-Yisrael, she gets chenek, strangulation, like a regular married woman would, even if she is technically a naarah me'urasa. The Mishnah adds, Ein lo petach beit av, she does not have the rule of her father's doorway, meaning typically if there is a Jewish girl who is always Jewish and she commits such an act when she's naarah me'urasa, they do the skila, the execution, at the doorway of her father's home, to show that the father's upbringing was somewhat responsible for this act. Now, obviously, everyone makes their own choices, But if a young girl grew up in a way that was lacking in tznius and lacking in modesty, then we do throw some blame on the father. Obviously, this young girl converted with her mother. She has no Jewish father, so it would not apply. Velo mea sela, and she's not entitled to 100 coins in the case where she did get married and the husband then accuses her of being unfaithful during the Erusin period and says she wasn't a Betula, and they go to court, and then he's proven to be a liar. Maybe he hired false testimony, or it showed tendency as a liar. There's a punishment, a fee, a fine that this man has to pay for accusing a Jewish girl, and that also is only for a young woman who was Jewish when she was born. The Mishnah goes on, Haita horata shalabekdusha. If this young woman who converted, she was conceived when her mother was not yet Jewish, Veledata bekdusha, and then she was born when her mother had already converted, so she was born as a Jewish lady. Hare zo beskila. Then if she was a naarah merasa and committed adultery, she would get a skila. Ve'ein la petach beit av. But again, if she doesn't have a Jewish father, so there'd be no halacha of doing the skila at the entrance to her father's house. Lo mea sela. And again, our sages learn out, she wouldn't get that fine that's levied against the man who accuses her of being unfaithful, the motzi shemra. Haita horata, the next case, if her conception, veledata, and her birth was bikkedusha, was as a Jew, so her mother was Jewish when she was conceived and born, hare hi kevad Yisrael kol davar. She is a regular Jewish girl, even though her mother had converted. Yeshla of, she has a father, ein la petach beitav. So this is the next case in the Mishnah. She has a father, ein la petach beitav, but he doesn't have a house. So he's a renter. He doesn't own a house. Or yeshla petach beitav. She's living in her father's house, but the father is deceased. Harezo beskila, she does get skila if she's a naarah merasa. However, this skila would obviously be done in the normal place that the court does executions by stoning, and not at the petach beit av. The Mishnah concludes, lo ne'amar petach beit avia. The Torah didn't say this execution should be done at the entrance to her father's house. Elila mitzvah. That's an ideal thing to do, again, to link the father to the impropriety of his daughter. Yashko Chachem, a good Chedesh.